Hello everyone and welcome back to a new coloring adventure with CLAldridge Art. For those of you who may not know me, my name is Christine Aldridge. I am an artist. I draw coloring books. This is one of my books. This is my first book called Flowers and Dreams. And this is actually I'll take this off and show you the actual cover. This is the first book that I ever drew. I released it with a different cover in January of 2016. This cover's been on it since January of 2017. And this is the actual drawing that was the very first one that I ever released for the 1-year anniversary. I redid it. I added the flowers always make me happy to fill out the entire page, and this is the first time that I am coloring it since that time. I will pop in a photograph in editing. You should see it here, that shows the very first time that I colored it, so you can see the differences in how I'm doing in learning to color. Today, I thought that I would continue on with this. I've been working on this in my personal time, but I wanted to do a video segment on it because it is featuring a brand of pencils that I have really come to love called the Deli pencils. They are these. They come in a tin of 72. There's a link down below. These are a Polychromos knockoff brand. They're not marketed that way, but that's how they were recommended to me, and at a price point of under $30 for this set of 72. And as you can see, they are really beautiful pencils. They are well worth that, at least. And of course, I am a new colorist, not new to art certainly, but new to coloring my art, because I draw in black and white. And so this is what I've been doing, and these are the pencils that I've taken out of the box and have been using. I've just simply rubber banded them together. Now, one of the things that I have been finding is that, of course, they are an oil-based wax pencil, oil-based soft core, and the laydown is rich. The color saturation is wonderful. It does take a bit to smooth it all out, and I was wondering, since my books are printed on Amazon paper, I was wondering how they would do on the more expensive books. So I wanted to just look at that very quickly and give you my thoughts on whether or not they do any better. So I thought that I would color, or any differently, if they feel any differently. I thought I would color this cherry right here as an example, or perhaps even a plum, maybe something that I actually have the colors for. On the other hand, maybe I'll color this flower. How about I color this flower? And I will use the colors that I am using in one of my drawings up here. And so let me find the, let's see, what do I want? I believe that I want this, which is, now these pencils do not come with names, they only have numbers. So I am going to, this is like a cream color. And I just want to put it down on one of these petals or two. How about I'll do 3. And I'm just putting a light base layer. And then I want to color these with the oranges and just see if they are any different than the way they have laid down in my own book. So this is starting with a gold layer. I will go ahead and add a golden yellow layer. Right on top of the cream. It does feel a little smoother. Let me zoom you in here a little so that you can see. I want to see if they blend any easier as well. This, by the way, is Twilight Garden by Maria Troll. Could be Trolle. I've always said Troll. Now I'm adding a slightly darker shade. Toward the outside of the leaves or the petals. Just light pressure, working in light layers, because of course the polychromos are a layering pencil. They work best when you use lots of light layers, holding it fairly far back so that I don't, I'm not tempted to put down too much pressure. And then I am going to choose an even darker shade and do a layer toward the very outside edge. Just catching, and what I'm trying to do is just leave a lighter spot toward the center of the petal, like it's bending over on both sides. Still working in light layers. And it does feel slightly smoother on this paper. Now I'm going to go back to the yellow, excuse me, and just sort of blend over, put another light layer over all of those. Trying to go for a smooth and seamless blend. And going back to my darks, this time I'm going to work it in reverse. Small circular motions. Just building up the colors. And I'll be adding a darker shade underneath the petals where they cross over. But that's my contrast layer. And I'll do that closer to last, so that it doesn't muddy up the works. The blend is a little smoother with just the pencils. With the CreateSpace paper, or the Amazon paper, I do end up having to use a blender pencil to get it as smooth as I can, because it is a much toothier paper. And of course the Maria Troll paper has virtually no tooth to it at all. I love the way that it takes Inktense or any of my watercolors, or the Neocolors, Neocolor 2s. That is pretty. Look at how pretty that is. Switching back to the lighter shade of the orange, going in and just going over the darker, just sort of pulling it down a little more. The goal is to leave a glow in the center. Patience is so hard with pencils. But it's what achieves a smooth and seamless result. You just have to be willing to put in the time to do the layers. Now I could add more colors in here. Right now I'm just sort of going over the whole thing. With the lighter shade, lightest shade. And hopefully you can see that, you know, the way that that leaves the glow in the middle of those flowers. You know, thinking that they're getting full sun. Now, just the colors that I have, if I needed to pick a shade color, I might pick a let's try a brown. Just the ones I want, the 161. The 161 is a reddish brown. So I'm going to turn the book a little bit so that I get a better angle for myself. But all I'm doing is just laying in a very light shade of brown underneath where the leaves would be crossing over. Or the petals would be crossing over, which just adds a little more dimension to your individual petals. You do want to do this part sort of slowly, and I am only doing these 3 petals. trying to work in the same direction that I've been working in all along. And it's really just to add that little bit of extra contrast between the layers. And where the sun would be causing the petals below to throw a little shade or shadow, or the petals above to throw a little shade or shadow on the ones below. So far so good. We haven't crushed the tooth. Now I'll go back in with my lighter shade and just very, very lightly sort of blend that in. And you want to be very light with that so that you don't actually remove the pigment or change its color. Okay, yeah, just like that. Okay, so these do lay down beautifully on the good paper as well. So, yahoo. I mean, look. I don't know if that's going to focus for me or not. There you go. Yeah, I kind of like that. Okay. Well, now we have the answer to that question. I've been wondering, and now we know. I am not going to color in that today. I am going to continue to color on this as soon as we come back. Please like and subscribe to my channel. If you would like, you can follow me on social media at CLAldridge Art. If you know that part, you can always find me on Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter. Also, I have all of my books and individual drawings are available not only at Amazon worldwide, but also as PDF instant downloads in my Etsy shop. And we will come right back and get started on coloring this. Hi, and welcome back. And let's get started on coloring this beauty. This was one of my favorite drawings that I have ever drawn. I'm going to turn the book slightly because I'm going to be working on this flower right here. And then I also want to show you how I did the lettering. Not only, of course, is this the drawing that started everything off for me, as it was the very first one. So I'm starting out with the cream color again. This is the 102 pencil in the set. It is a very pinky beige. It would probably be a very good skin tone. I am adding a light to medium pressure layer because these are tiny little petals and I really only need to add a couple. I'm going to go over it with, of all things, the gold pencil, which was a bit of an accidental discovery. I thought I was reaching for something else, but the gold turned it the shade that I was looking for. I originally started to do this one as a study of a beautiful version of this drawing that was colored by Jamie Taylor in my group, and she had actually done her version and put it in for a contest that she won, and it was beautiful colors, some of which I have mimicked here. This is very similar to the background, the golds that she used. I am changing up my colors a little bit from what she used, but so that it is my own. I will go ahead and show you a picture of her version here. And look at how gorgeous that was. She was obviously thrilled when she won a coloring contest with that, as was I for her. And my Facebook group is very active. If you'd like to come join us, there is a link down at the bottom. Members of my group get a group discount always in my Etsy shop. And but I'm usually pretty good also about adding it in when I do live streams and things like that. I do Easter eggs to give you a little discount, especially if there are new drawings in the shop. I'm working on my next book, which is Dragons. By the way, that was a green, number 151. Once again, they don't really have names, but I did add the a green layer, and now I'm adding just a slightly darker layer. And to do this, I am going to switch it over and turn the book over, because I like to do a downstroke when I am doing a layer from coming under leaves like this, or coming under petals. And so this is just adding a second darker green shade. And I don't know why I picked this, I just thought it was pretty. This pencil could use a sharpen, but it was one that had I felt the core crack a little bit the last time I had it in the sharpener, and so I've been sort of babying it along until I can get past the crack in the core, because I can feel that the core is just a tiny bit loose in there, like I could just pull it out. But as long as I keep enough wood around it, I can baby it along. And that sometimes happens with colored pencils. Okay, so just added a layer of that. Now, this is where I discovered the gold makes a very interesting change. I used it like a blender. It really is sort of counterintuitive that you would put a gold down over a flush pink or a cream pink, but it works. And since I did it on these up here, if I don't repeat it, then they all won't look the same. So, but it takes it just to a different shade that works really, really well. And that's all there is to that one. Then I took the green and I did the lighter shade all the way around. The two shades of green that I have here, one is slightly lighter than the other. So I went all the way around, and then in the corners where it would be the darkest because of the shade of these two petals, I just darkened that up. And then I also have a lighter green shade that I can use to make it just a little more olivey. So now I've got the lighter of my yellows, which is, let's see here, it is the number 106 pencil. And so I did a light layer of that here in the center. And then a more golden yellow, which is the 107 pencil, and added a darker layer of that toward the center and down one side. So back to the lighter layer up here. And so I've got my center of my flower. So that's those done. Now I need my oranges. And I'm going to go back to this lighter yellow. And in this particular case, I did also lay down that layer of cream, I believe. The creamy pink. No, I didn't. Okay. So I'm going to go with these three pencils. Now these are the 106, the 112, which is the lighter of the two oranges, and the 114. And I'm going to try and duplicate what I did here. Now obviously, in your own coloring, you could change it up to whatever colors you want. Once again, I'm holding the pencil toward the back so that I can be sure that I am laying down just a light layer of color. This first layer is about color mapping. Really, just sort of figuring out where on each petal you want the flowers to, or the colors to go. And I learned that from Sammy about color mapping. I think all of you know about Color and Chat with Sammy. She's a marvelous colorist. Just tons and tons of talent that is just amazing to watch. Okay, and so that is a light yellow layer. Now for the medium orange. Once again, also holding the pencil to the side. I'm going wider on one side with the orange, basically sort of using the dictate of the curves and the way that they're curving to figure out where on the petal a light source, or where on the petal the light would be hitting it. So like on that one, it would be closer in on this side, since this one is technically in the dead center. I'm going to go with both sides sort of being a little more even. So that it's going to hit more in the dead center of it. And on this side, it would also be hitting closer to right there. So I'm going to go wider on this side. Basically the opposite of what I did over there. And if it's not exactly perfect, don't worry. And this one, see, now we're starting to get over here where there's a bunch of other flowers. So maybe this one's just only got a very tiny part where it's hitting the light. Same thing over here. Hardly any light is going to be getting through the shadows that are cast by the flower above it. Now here, these are outside petals or underneath petals. So these are going to be darker here toward this center and lighter out toward the ends. Because these two these are being shaded by these petals above. And when you work in light layers like this and layer over each other, putting down a base layer, your colors go on much smoother. And that's why layering with colored pencils is so important. While it's fine to be a color masher or a pencil masher, i.e. you want to put a single layer down, your blends will be much better if you do the patience thing and wait for them. Wait for them. Okay, so now I'm going to do exactly the same thing, only with a slightly narrower view with this darkest shade of orange. So I'm actually making it darkest along the edges and then tapering off the pressure as I come back in toward the center. Same thing here. Darkest along the edges and also where this flower would be casting a shadow on the leaf or on the petal underneath it. So there's not going to be very much light hitting that one. Same thing here. Darker toward the center. So my dear friend, who I think I've mentioned in earlier videos, she and her husband, he retired from Boeing, and she is sort of semi-retired. She's a Hollywood stylist, and he was an engineer. They have retired to Arizona, to their ranch in Arizona, and they have been posting pictures of their remodel that they're doing. And for anybody who's ever remodeled a house while you're living in it, you know that can be such a challenge. And I think I mentioned that in a video a couple of weeks ago. But as she's posting the pictures of this decorating that she's doing as each new room is completed, It's just such a thrill to see her so excited about finally getting to make this a permanent home. Because she bought that property, geez. She and I have been friends for 46 years. And I'm trying to think of how old I was when she bought that property. I don't remember. I couldn't have been more than 30. I think she did say that they paid it off this year. It had a 30-year mortgage on it. They paid it off. Okay. So I am looking forward to getting to visit Arizona again. I used to make my home in that area in another lifetime. And I love it so very much. Politics are a little conservative there for my tastes, but not that I don't mind conservative. I'm as conservative as the next person, but I'm from California, man. We're a little more open-minded there. Okay. So we're getting there. Now we're going to add another layer of yellow. And notice that I'm working these very much in the same fashion that I did the ones when I showed the example in the Maria Troll book. Just sort of patience, light layers, and they equal a really beautiful, smooth blend. And these are blending just as well as those did in the Maria Troll book. I very much like a depth of color, a good color saturation. Trying to think if anything interesting has happened that that I'm at least aware of. I know there is a hurricane bearing down once again on Louisiana, which is certainly a matter of concern. I know my nephew's wife's family lives there, and it's a very important area to them because they visit back and forth quite often. So unfortunately, when these things happen, we don't, what can you do except worry until the event is over and you see whether or not there's been damage, or as long as properties can be replaced and possessions can be replaced, but people cannot. So as long as everybody stays safe from the storm, everything else can be dealt with. Back to the lighter shade of orange. This is the sort of the final now I'm going over the yellow just a tiny bit with the orange now, the medium orange, just to put one layer of a darker color on it. To sort of add to the glow. Now, one of the things that I did not do on the ones up here is I didn't do the brown layer for the contrast. I'm going to actually go do those all at the same time. And then one final layer of the yellow to just blend it all together. And as I've been coloring on this, for instance, this second flower turned out much better than this first flower. This one is turning out better than either of these two as far as so you learn as you go along when you do a coloring like this. And it's one of the reasons why I like practicing on these kinds of drawings. I do symmetrical drawings so that you can, I mean, I do lots of different kinds of drawings. They're not all symmetrical. And then I can also come back in with sort of one final layer of a neutral lighter color, because it's not really going to add any color so much as it is just going to blend everything together. And this time I'm just going across the grain. So yeah, there is that. One more flower done. Hi everybody and welcome back. I did turn off the camera and it's been several hours. It was 4 o'clock in the morning and it's of course the perfect time to go to Walmart, so I did that. I was out of cat food and so I had to take care of that little errand, and I also sort of did a bit of correction on this one now that I'm looking at it right side up. I darkened up the oranges a little bit, and then I did experiment a little bit with adding some brown shadowing in here in this one just to see how it would look. I like that, so I will do that. But I am just so excited because I've mentioned it a couple times, but my across the street neighbor his wife has been very, very ill, and for a time it looked like she might not get to come home from the hospital, but she did come home from the hospital, and she is suffering from terminal cancer, lung cancer, and so I'm adding some brown here, and about the only way that I could find any way at all to help them was I offered up my driveway for the parking for the nursing care, because she had home nursing care. And then I've noticed for the last couple of weeks that the home care nurses have only been coming like every, once a week. And today I looked out my window just in time to see her walking into the house under her own power. She does have an oxygen tank and a walker. Um, but oh my goodness, it was just such a wonderful sight to see her under her own power, and she has her hair. Uh, she has this gorgeous head of blonde hair, naturally blonde hair, and it looks like she has all of her hair, and she's lost a tremendous amount of weight. But I literally stood in my kitchen and thanked the powers of the universe that they'll have a few more, a little more time together. They've been married for 46 years, and I'm guessing that they have never spent a night apart, and that includes the month that she was actually in the hospital undergoing treatment. So it's always, it's just, it's like prayers get answered. Even if they are curmudgeonly neighbors who aren't always very nice, but who come through in a pinch, for each other. Okay, yeah, so I like that. I just added a little bit of brown in there as a highlight, and so that looks good. I wanted to show you how I did this flower and the lettering, and then I think that I will make a separate installment for this flower and the background. Now I had already laid down a layer of the lightest pink, which is the 118. Again, I am using the Deli pencils. There's a link down below to these pencils. They are marketed by Starjoy, and they go alternately Deli and Starjoy. But the tin is always the same, and it looks like it did at the top of the show when I showed you the tin. And so I'm now stepping, actually I want to do the purple next. So I've got the 126. Now, if the Deli set has any deficiency at all, it's that it only has 3 purples, but it does have an awful lot of pretty red, purpley kind of pinks, which are these. So it's not purple deficient, it just doesn't have my favorite shade of purple, which is the violet. So I do this, and then I add some blue, and end up with my violet anyway. Okay, so I'm going to turn the page and pull it up, and I think I'll start actually over here, and I'm just going to do sort of a downward flicking stroke, just adding in a layer of the purple, basically just following the lines and flicking it out so that it's a little bit heavier at the bottom and lighter at the top. And So there was virtually no one in Walmart. I didn't, at 4 o'clock in the morning. Lots of pallets parked all over the floor that I had to sort of work my way around. But I would rather fight the pallets for restocking than crowds of people. So, and I was really thrilled because they had a special on cat litter, a 20-pound box of scoopable, the scoopable cat litter that is just ridiculously expensive. And they had it for $2.50. So that was a good deal. It was, even at 4 o'clock in the morning, the temperature was still 85 degrees and the humidity is 95%. And it is miserable out there. Welcome to the South in the summertime. And of course, Hurricane Barry is throwing its long arms, throwing rain up across all sorts of areas because of its motion, the actual motion of the hurricane. So even as far north as we are of New Orleans, north and east, we are still going to get some rain. I just hope that New Orleans comes through it all right. Geez Louise, they've only just begun to really recover from Katrina. Okay, and then also one small bit here. I love these pencils. Now, I use these oftentimes, well, I didn't have them last year, but I found that in the summertime, my Prismas are just too soft. They're too soft for as warm as I keep it in the house. Otherwise I end up having to pay $200 and $300 power bills for the air conditioning, and I artist can't afford that. I don't think anybody should pay power bills that high. I'd live alone, for heaven's sakes. Me and the cat. So now I'm just darkening up the purple a little bit, or the pink. And I like to do the, and this, it's, once again, it's a light layer. Just bringing it right down sort of on top of the purple. Switch it around here, taking you for a ride. I was absolutely thrilled this week. Of course, on Monday, I tuned into Dee Dee Willingham's show, and she had taken a week off as an honorarium to her mother. who lost her spouse uh, the the week before, and so Dee Dee just didn't think it would be right to stream, and I absolutely thought that that was a wonderful thing to do in honor of her mother. But one of the things that she did in her off time was to color one of the birds, one of the hummingbird pages in my book that she showed just the other day, Flowers and Flyers. So, and she's going to send it to me, and I can hardly wait to get it. And it was just so lovely to see. And she did it in a limited three colors, and it is just gorgeous. It really just shows the power of, you know, just three colors. And okay, so now I am going to use the, oops, I don't know what I was thinking. I was going to do something else. I'm going to use this lighter pink and go over the whole sort of section here one more time and sort of blend it, and then decide if I need to deepen up those purples. And I think I am definitely going to need to do that. So I'm just using this lighter pink and going right over this. And then, of course, so that was Monday. And then Tuesday, the watercolor box came. And it was like, oh my goodness, the watercolor Happy Mail box from Morticia. If you haven't seen that video, it is just amazing. Absolutely amazing. And what a precious gift that is. Okay. All right, so that looks pretty good. Now, I am going to deepen up the purple with another layer. And I've got too many pencils out in the wrong way. All the things that you can't see from under the camera are preventing me from being able to turn the book. Okay, so we'll go here and we'll one more time. And this is sort of a medium pressure, whereas the first one was a light pressure. And now you can start to tweak it and sort of make sure that you've got all the spaces built in, keeping the downward stroke a little spiky so that it doesn't look like a solid line. I want it to be solid down at the bottoms, but sort of feathery out at the edges. Trying to keep the shadow of my hand out of it so you can see it. Okay, and then one more go at it with the pink. Might as well start up here since I've got it here. I would say that I need one of those coloring gloves, but you don't need a coloring glove if you've got just a piece of cardstock, which you can just lay over so that you can put your palm down on it. Might not be the prettiest way to do it, but it is really functional, and plus I don't really like to put things on my hands. It's an artist thing. Weird, you know. I wash my hands a half a dozen times a day because I don't like them to, I don't like the idea of getting the oil from my skin on my paper. And that really is a leftover from knitting. I used to knit a lot and crochet a lot with natural fiber yarns. And natural wools have lanolin in them naturally. And so they leave like a residue on your fingers. And I never liked that sticky residue. And for this piece, it's really about the, it's about the color saturation for me. And now I'm at the very, very lightest, which is the 118 again. And just very lightly, just sort of blending that all together. I learned that from Dollar Diva, that most of us, when we blend, we are, our tendency is to want to mash it, to actually crush the tooth. But if you go at it lightly, first, it gives a better blend. And then if you need a little more pressure to get rid of a little white spot, then you can do just that. Okay, so ta-da on that. And now for the green of the leaves. Now here, I actually do the veins fairly solidly, but leave a bit of a, oops, there's that broken part again. This is the green that has the broken core. So I'm just once again sort of babying it along. I suspect that I'm getting pretty close to the break, which is why it is Okay, and then I'm going to take my lighter shade, lightest shade, and actually blend along those lines. I'm leaving a bit of a white or a light spot in the middle because there'll be a highlight there. See how these have a highlight that runs down them? So that's what that is about. I'm just sort of figuring out where that is going to go. Oops. Hang on, sweetheart. Hang on. Don't fall out. Do you ever talk to your pencils? Ask them for favors. Okay, and then yeah, it is only 8 o'clock in the morning and the air conditioner is already kicking on, and it is, which means that it is over 80 degrees in the house. Okay, and one last. Oops. Trying to find that spot where it won't. It actually works better if I can put it sort of up and down. The light one. Okay. Now, so I've got the veins in. Now I'm going to put a light layer of the lightest green all over each of the leaves. And oops, I see there's a little bit of a vein right down there that I missed. Okay, and for the last one, I can just color mapping. For the lightest shade. Now I'm going to go to my medium shade. I have a number of greens here. I'm not using that one or that one for this project. So, oh, actually I am using that one, not using that one. Okay. So now I've got my medium green. And I'll go ahead and bring this in. I'm just sort of trying to follow those highlight lines that I left in the veins. And laying in just a light shade of the medium green, starting to darken these up. I keep hearing this weird noise, and it's my chair creaking. I don't know what. I guess it's because when I have the camera on, I've got everything else is turned off. The TV's off. All the ambient noise in the house has been quieted. So I guess I just don't hear it when the television or the radio or anything like that is on. Maybe I should get some WD-40 for it. I'll bet you I have a can of it laying around somewhere. Okay. So you can see the highlights are just starting to sort of rough in. And now I'm going to do the darkest around, once again, just, using a very light layer. Excuse me. And just pulling the darkest. This is where if you start to get a little too heavy with your layers, it starts to, you get this sort of weird splotchiness happening. And if that happens to you, you can just blend it out with your colors. Just choose a color lighter and blend over it. Yeah, boy, that is getting loose. Okay. Now, I'm going to go back to my darker shade. Sorry. Darkest shade. Start adding it around the edges, the most outer edges. Just slowly sort of building the color up. So again, using light layers. I wonder if we added up the actual amount of time that it takes to color something that has a depth of color like this, how long that would be. Okay, now I'm going to go with my medium green. Just go right over the darker. Just leaving those highlights. Doing a little bit of final shaping of it. Working it in. And there are, I might not be doing this right. This is just, and once again, we get into the issue of right or wrong. There is no right way to color. There is your way. And there is, techniques that you can apply. But you just have to go with what you see when you color. Now, I'm going to go ahead and add in another layer of the lightest green along those highlights. This one here is looking a little splotchy to me. The other two look much better. Just going to darken up just along the actual outer edges. Just sort of blend it in just a tiny bit. I've got a issue with the glare from my point of view, so it's a little difficult for me to see it from the angle that I'm looking at it. I have to keep consulting the computer screen. All right, now I should be able to do a final blend over the whole thing with this lightest shade. And then I'll show you a little trick that I learned, because in the event that you get it too dark, which in this case I don't think I did. But if you feel that you did, then you can just use your eraser and put in a much more defined highlight. Oh, I like the shine on that. Just trying to rub out some of those harsher sort of spots. And these oil pencils seem to let you, layer quite a bit. I'm not pulling up pigment or anything like that. Of course, they're all wax, but these have oil in them as well. Oil-based soft core. Okay. So there we go. And I think they look pretty good. There's one spot right there. I could do with a little zhuzh. Okay, so if you do that, see how you get the green spot right there? I was actually practicing a signature there. I'm trying to make my initials more interesting looking than they actually are. There we go. Okay. That'll work. Now I just need to do the green in here. And I will start with the lightest green, as usual. And in this particular case, I used the 152 green, which is a more olivey green, and just went around the outside. And then I used the more medium green to just add a little bit of a darker color in there. And then called it good. So this one is a little bit pinker than this one, but I think that that's okay. Now, the way that I did the color that I used to do the darkening up of the corners is the 130, which is a blue, a darker blue. And of course, because purple is a blue based, it's blue with red. When you use it like this over the purple, it basically just makes a darker shade of purple. So just adding in a little bit of contrast line, a little batter where the two petals would come together. Just lightly, not mashing it, but just, and then just barely outlining the leaves so that they, just sort of settle against one another. And it looks like shade. And then I did the same thing around the edges of these tiny leaves. And this is where it helps to have your pencil sharp. I love those dark contrasts. Yeah, and see, it just turns out a really dark purple. And if you want to blend it out a little bit, I just pulled the cream color, and you can just go over it and sort of smooth out any little splotches that are in there, because a lighter shade will act as a neutral. Ta-da! Okay. Now I want to pick out where my different petals are, like one is above. There. Just sort of blur those lines. There. Perfect. Or as perfect as I can make it, because there is no perfect in coloring. Okay, now on to these. So that's the, those are the two colored flowers, and I will finish those two off camera, and then I will probably do one more of the squares, and then leave like this one over here, and I'll show you the way that I did the background blend and this in another separate video. So for this, I just basically started out like choosing a line of how far I wanted the purple to come up. And just do the very bottom of each of the letters. And then moved up to a, okay, so that was the 126, which is the darkest purple in the box. Then I picked the 119, or actually, no, I didn't. I picked the 122, which is a lighter pinker purple. And sort of worked it right into the purple. Whoops. I am so sorry. I hope that I was not up there the entire time. I will check the replay. Just going to do the very bottom of that one. I'm sort of leaving a little feathered part up there at the top. so that I can blend it in. Okay, now the next shade up is the 119. And I'm not, you know, this is just a sort of a one of, so I am hitting it with fairly hard medium hard pressure. And then I've got the 121, which I'm only going to be using on the F and the L. Well, actually, that's not true, is it? We'll use it for all but the very tips, the very tops of the letters. And then the lightest of the pinks, which is the 118. For the crossbars up there. And I'm just eyeballing this, you know, it's just, once again, it's, you know, close only, what is it they say? Close only counts in hand grenades and horseshoes. Okay, and then the very top of the F. Okay, flowers always. And then down here, I may do this one in darker blues. The same, you know, the same idea, but with blues. I'll just have to wait and see. In the meantime, I hope that you have liked seeing the Deli pencils and what they can do. I also went ahead while I was contemplating lots of things and finished this flower. So that is what it looks like in Maria Trolle's book. And I used some slightly different greens. I used a brown in here. I used, you know, I did a little, made the center yellow and then used like a light umber shade to do some shading around in the yellow part of the flower, just to add a little bit of shade and shadow. And then sort of the vine continuing around. So, and then of course I've covered it because it is, you know, it's oil-based pencil, and this is a double-sided book. So I just covered it with a little piece of tissue paper. And put that book on the shelf. Okay, so now back out. Once again, this is my book, Flowers and Dreams. And this is, like, again, it is the first book that I ever drew. And that picture is not one of the ones that is in my 40 Fan Favorites Volume 1, but it will be in Volume 2. This book, of course, contains 5 drawings from each of my 8 books, and here they are in order. Flowers and Dreams, Flower Inspirations, Flowers and Flyers, Flowers and Whimsy, Flowers of Fantasy, Flowers of Wonder, Fantasy Flower Garden. This is the one with the creatures in it. And then Fabulous Flowers. Flowers and Whimsy is primarily mandalas. And then, of course, there is, in addition to this book, there is just recently released the best of the mandalas that I've drawn. This is my author copy. And so there's all of these in there. It's gotten great reviews and has been on the bestsellers list twice since it came out. There are just a couple that I have finished in here. There is a couple others that I've worked on. There's another that I finished. This is a work in progress with water-based markers. We did this with pastels on a stream. So there are those, and I do hope that you like this drawing, and will continue to watch as I color the rest of it, and that video will quite likely come out sometime next week. It'll be one of my midweek videos where I finish this up, and then I can hardly wait to show it on Instagram. Thank you for joining me today. Until we meet again, please color something pretty. Bye, everybody. Thanks for watching.